All right, welcome. In this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on what it really looks like to diagnose ADHD in adults. We're going to follow a real, totally anonymized case to see how those lifelong feelings of just being, well, different get translated into a clinical diagnosis and, maybe most importantly, a clear path forward. It all starts with this one simple but really powerful thought. This is the core feeling that pushed one adult to finally go get an official assessment after a whole lifetime of suspecting something was up, but never ever having a name for it. You know, for so many adults, the road to an ADHD diagnosis doesn't kick off with some big single event. Nah, it usually starts with this persistent, nagging feeling that's been there for as long as they can remember. A feeling that's now creating some very real challenges that they just can't ignore anymore. So what was the tipping point here? Well, she works in a daycare, which, as you can imagine, takes a ton of patience and focus. She found herself really struggling, and with her plans to go back to college for early childhood education, she knew that whatever this was, it had gone from being just a personal quirk to a major roadblock to her future. And you can just feel that constant internal buzz in her own words. This isn't just about being a little bored during quiet time at her job. No, this is a restlessness that's with her all the time, this inability to just be still. Now, this is a super common part of the adult ADHD story. Long before ADHD is even on the table, a lot of adults get diagnosed and treated for other things, usually anxiety and depression. And while that treatment can definitely help, it often feels like it's just not getting to the root of the problem. This timeline just tells such a classic story. You see the suspicions back in childhood that just never got checked out, a huge missed opportunity for early help. Then, as an adult, the focus shifts to anxiety and depression. And even though she eventually found a medication that helped her mood, it was like treating the smoke but not the fire. Those core challenges with focus, they never went away. And that's what made her psychiatrist say, okay, we need to dig deeper. And this just shows that disconnect perfectly. The medication was doing its job, right? It was helping with the depression and anxiety. It was like having an umbrella in a rainstorm. But it couldn't do anything about the internal hurricane of a racing mind, that constant restlessness, and getting distracted by everything. The root issue was still there. Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty, because this is where the mystery really starts to unravel. A proper ADHD evaluation is not just a quick chat and a checklist. No way. It is a thorough, multi-part process that's designed to get objective, data-driven answers. So a real evaluation is kind of a three-part dance. It's not just about what you say, it's about what the data shows, too. It starts with that in-depth interview, getting your whole life story. Then you've got these computerized tests that give hard data on brain functions like attention. But the final step is the most critical. A psychologist takes your personal story and that objective data, puts it all together to see the full picture, and then makes an accurate diagnosis. During the assessment, they test key cognitive functions, and one of the biggest is working memory. The report used this fantastic metaphor. It's like your mind's desktop space. Think about trying to follow a new recipe while you're also keeping track of a timer and trying to remember if you already added the salt. That's working memory. And when that desktop space is cluttered or small, those everyday tasks become incredibly difficult. So you have all these clinical tests, but what does it all mean? How does it connect back to her actual real life? This is the crucial part of the journey. This is where those lifelong subjective feelings finally get tied to objective clinical findings. It's the big aha moment. Listen to this quote from her. This feeling of getting bored and just completely burned out on tasks is so common. It's not about being lazy or undisciplined. It's a genuine experience of just hitting a wall when you're trying to sustain mental effort. And the assessment gave that feeling a name. The testing showed that this experience of burnout and boredom was directly linked to a measurable deficit in a very specific kind of attention. And that's what's called sustained attention. This is your ability to stick with something that isn't brand new or exciting. Think about long meetings, reading a dense textbook, or filling out paperwork. When your sustained attention is impaired, your brain is basically fighting you the entire time you're trying to stay on task. So before we get to the final diagnosis, it's really important to know that ADHD is not a one-size-fits-all thing. The diagnosis is going to specify one of three main types. You've got primarily inattentive, primarily hyperactive impulsive, or a combination of both. And so, after putting all the pieces together, the interview, the tests, the whole story, the psychologist landed on a really clear diagnosis. The client met the clinical criteria for attention deficit/hyperactivity disorder combined type. This chart is perfect because it shows you exactly why it was a combined type diagnosis. Her experiences weren't just in one column. She was checking boxes on the left with the classic inattentive symptoms like getting easily distracted and avoiding those mentally draining tasks. But she was also clearly living with the symptoms on the right, that constant fidgeting and internal restlessness. Her story was a clear match for both. And honestly, this is the most hopeful part of this whole journey. A diagnosis isn't some final label or an excuse. It's a starting point. It's the key that unlocks a whole new set of tools and strategies to manage life and to manage it better. Because the real value of an assessment like this isn't just getting the label, right? It's the detailed, personalized roadmap that comes with it. It gave her a clear plan with actual steps she could take, all based on her specific challenges. And the plan they put together was so holistic. It wasn't just, here, take this pill. Yes, it recommended looking into medication specifically for ADHD, but it also stressed therapy to work on coping strategies. It included really practical stuff too, like getting academic accommodations at college. And it even built on the self-care she was already doing, like coloring, and suggested adding new things like meditation. And in the end, it all comes back to this. Her goal was so clear. She just wanted to be able to sit through a class, to actually absorb the information, and to chase her passion without her own brain fighting her every single step of the way. This diagnosis and the plan that came with it gave her the first real shot at making that happen. And that really leaves us with a powerful question to think about. This whole journey started because behaviors that we often just write off as character flaws, being lazy or careless, were finally seen for what they are: symptoms. It just makes you wonder, how many of our own struggles, the things we beat ourselves up about, aren't personal failings at all? What if they're just the signs of a brain that's wired just a little bit differently?